As I kind of mentioned in the last video then, I'm ready to start laying track now. All these baseboards are down. But just before I do, the one last thing I want to try, which I've been meaning to get on and try for ages, is to see how well a 14 car APT will fit on the layout. Now, this isn't entirely a sudden thing. I bought most of the parts, most of the coaches that are running on this train during lockdown, because I didn't really have anything better to spend my money on in those days, and just the odd little bit I've collected up since. And that's how it stayed. But then, somewhat foolishly, I saw maybe a year or so ago, I saw that the price of the 5-car one came down quite considerably. And as I couldn't buy an NDM separately, I decided I would buy the 5-car set, which I thought would give me options and that kind of thing. And I always thought as well, if I could have the fun with it, and if it doesn't really work out, I can sell the 5-car set anyway because I got it cheap. But what I didn't know, and probably maybe should have known if I had product knowledge, I don't know, but I didn't realise that there was a new version of the APT coming out, and that was kind of probably, I assume, why these cheap versions, or these first versions, were being sold off cheap, because the retailers and Hornby knew there was a new version coming and they didn't want to mix the two up, so get rid of your old stock ready for the new one. And I didn't know that, and again, maybe that was my fault, but that sort of annoyed me slightly. But I ended up with a 5-car set that I probably sort of felt I couldn't sell again now anyway, because there was a new version coming out. So I thought, well, I might as well make the best of it. Although it's kind of sat in a box for a year, and it's only now that I've dragged the second motor car out and tested the consist. I have cleared my longest storage line, so let's see how close my layout comes to being able to store one of these things. So here's the front of it then, and that's as close as I dare get it to the start of the V that's just in front of it, which is the set of points. And also obviously it needs to be set back a little bit because there's a through line the other side of it, which trains need to pass it on. And as best I can, this isn't from a great angle, so it's a bit deceptive. There is side space the other side of it, but that's as close as I dare go to that set of points in front of it. And here it is then from a bit further back. That's where it's parked. So let's go all the way down here. All the other storage lines and all the other trains. And have a look under here. And well, first of all, I can't quite see it. It kind of fits. If I come back here, it's not sat on the points, which I thought it might be. But there really isn't much clearance to them. Just trying to get a good angle here. I've taken the lid off, just this one panel, so I can get a good view of whether there's any scraping as this class 158 passes. Try and get a decent view and move it out. Help if I turn the track power on. And it is just, I don't know how well this is picking it up because it's still kind of under the other board, but there is clearance. So I'm going to bring a Mark IV coach. I think these coaches are pretty much Mark IV length, so it's a good indication, but I'll bring a Mark IV coach up as well and make sure that that's clearing it. So near side is good, I think. And coming around this way, it's extremely tight. but there is clearance. Now, I do have some issues with this train running particularly this fast, and it's mainly around derailments, in that the power comes from the middle of the train, and if for whatever reason the front of the train derails because I've left a set of points wrong or something's gone wrong with the servo, whatever it happens to be, the issue is that normally if a train's being pulled by a locomotive at the front, if that derails, then that locomotive, something's going to go wrong with it and it's going to come off the tracks and it's going to lose power and it's going to stop. The problem with the APT is when the stuff at the front gets derailed, the stuff in the middle, which is the power car, is still fine and it keeps pushing. And this thing is flimsy, and the way the articulated bogies are attached, I have had issues where it's derailed even just slightly at the front. The middle's kept pushing and it's ended up in a horrible mess because so much stuff gets pushed and derailed. What I've ended up with, of course, with the two motor cars paired up on the long train, is a complete dummy. There's not a single motor in all of this. That's the dummy that's come off the original 7-car set. So although I sort of have a complete APT set, 5-car set, I can't use it because it doesn't have a motor. So in the interests of throwing even more money at it, foolishly, I thought if I was to buy one more motor car, then that isn't a dummy set anymore. It's a working set with 2 NDMs in the middle, one of them a dummy. But I'd heard that these motor cars were more powerful, more sturdy, perhaps heavier than the old ones. So it seemed like quite a realistic possibility that just the one motor car would run a second APT with a dummy a little more comfortably than the old one did. Something I needed to think through though is there's potentially an issue with couplings, because even though on the box of the new one, and this is the new box because they've put 21 pin decoder sign on it there, the image has got the old couplings on it, and the new one actually comes with magnetic couplings. So if I was using the old set of couplings, which are up here in a bag because I'm not, I'd have an issue connecting the dummy to the new motor car. However, I've been using the magnetic Hunt couplings, so I've kind of got two options. These new motor cars come with magnetic couplings anyway, and at the minute there are no couplings on this one because I took them off the dummy to put on the 5-car motor car that's now running around the layout. So I've bought a second set of Hunt couplings, which are pretty good and not that expensive. The idea being now that even if the magnetic couplings that come with this thing don't work with the Hunt ones, I've got enough of the Hunt ones to make a set anyway. I'm going to try a quick weight comparison, and there is an obvious noticeable difference in weight. If I take the old one, which doesn't have its pantograph on it, but I'm not sure that flimsy thing's going to make much difference. So we've got 363 grams there. There's a bit of a scratch on my screen or something. 363 grams. And put the new one on. So yeah, 455. There is a noticeable difference in weight. I was having problems with the decoder with this one. This is the old one, so I've just had it apart, and you kind of have to, because underneath there isn't much space for the decoder to sit. It can affect how the train tilts, and it's certainly given me a lot of derailments. So you kind of have to shove the decoder up through the gap between the chassis and the motor housing, which is easy to do. But something I've noticed, and is really worrying actually when I've taken the lid off, is most of these catches now, there's one there, these are things that hold the upper body on, have snapped. And they just look so flimsy. I mean, I was careful when I took the lid off, but completely snapped. So I'm just going to end up with a kind of the lid of the train hanging half off, I guess, and not sitting flush to the body, but it's done. And no more messing about with the shoving the decoder up into the body of the loco anymore. It's just got the little 21 pin connector and a completely different housing. Actually, I think this housing is much wider than the original. Oh, and here's another issue. I hadn't banked on this one, and I don't know if in this light it's clear, but actually the one with the pantograph is the new one. It's a different colour to the original one. I was not expecting that. It's just got a little bit more yellow to it. I think it's maybe noticeable down there in this light, but it's definitely got a creamier, more yellow colour to it than the old set. Here it is, the new one getting a quick run in then. It has a bit of a squeak to it by the sound of it. I don't know whether that'll disappear once it's run in, but I guess it's not an issue anyway because it'll soon be drowned out by the rest of the APT. Something a little bit strange, I've got two pantographs here. These are probably the ones that fell off the two NDMs and the original 7-car set. They're both the same. They came on the 7-car set. But I've just got the one parked over here. Now this one came on the 5-car set, but this was still the first release. But that's a completely different pantograph to the one that came on the 7-car set. It's got those kind of wings. Where's my finger? Wings sort of sticking out there. And just a completely different structure to the ones that were on the 7-car set. And the new one that's just still running around doing its laps, that's got the new one on it that matches, or the different one that matches that one. Now I just thought I'd have to capture this. So this is the 5-car APT with the new motor car running. And I'm just going to let it come past. It hasn't got any lights, decoders for the lights on the end cars yet. But not just the motor car, but even on the old 5-car APT set, that's running so much more quietly than the 7-car one I had that still squeaks now. I'll let it come around again, but that's running so quietly and smoothly. That's really surprised me. I thought this was kind of going to be the run to the litter that never came out, but actually I'm thinking of putting the 14 cars that are down on the lower deck somewhere in boxes now and just keeping this one on, because this is running beautifully. Just something that's noticeable when they're side by side, and presumably this is deliberate, but the near side first class coach, the ones that connect to the motor car, didn't have a first class stripe on them, whereas the ones that came in the 7-car set at the back there did. It's been an interesting comparison then, because I've had the 5-car pack for a long time, I'm surprised at the differences actually, because I never actually opened it. The differences between the 5 car and the 7 car pack. And it's sort of been an interesting comparison with the new motor car as well. But I think while I've got it all out, the one comparison left to make, I guess, is the pulling power of the single new motor car compared to the single old motor car. And I've been running the single car setup from the original 7 car pack for as long as this layout has been built. So I'm sort of pretty used to what it could pull and what its limits were, especially up the hill. And going up the hill, because I always had more coaches than it could pull. So on a good day, it could pull the extra standard coach pack and the extra buffet pack on its own with the dummy. So that was, I guess, an additional 4 coaches to the 6 that it started out with, because I didn't use the development coach. So it was reasonably comfortably pulling 9, because occasionally I could hear wheel spin, so I would take the one of the buffet cars out and it would run okay. On its day it could run 10 as well. So I'm going to be sort of as even as I can and use exactly the same coaches, the standard ones which are already on the one that's running around. So I'll take the buffet coaches off this one, get them attached to the train that's running around, and see how the new motor coach does with 10 cars. That doesn't sound quite right. Is my maths bad? Something interesting I've just discovered. The 2 coaches in front of the camera here, on the left hand side is a trailer unclassified, and on the right hand side is the first class, the full first class coach. And I bought these recently from Hatton's around the same time as I bought the motor coach, again foolishly just to have the complete set of coaches and kind of the authentic 14-car rake. And so I had it all lined up here, and I turned the track power off because I was going to start moving coaches around. And interestingly, these 2 coach packs, although I bought them from both at the same time new from Hatton's, if I turn the track power off, the unclassified lights have stayed on, which means that must be a new updated set with the new capacitor in them. Whereas the first class coach, the lights have gone out, so that must be from the old batch. So there is possibly still some mixing up of old and new stock, and there's no guarantee of what you're going to get when you order stuff. Turns out then that my maths wasn't bad, and it was an 8-car train, which is now a 10-car train with the 2 buffet coaches on it. This is the single new NDM motor, and this one is comfortably taking a 10-car train up the hill. Let's give it more. Here we go again then, with first class coaches added. We now have a single motored NDM hauling a 12-car train up the hill. Only one thing I've got to try now. Well, I honestly didn't see this coming. This isn't a setup, it's not scripted, I've just filmed it as I've gone along. Even testing this kind of pulling power was an afterthought really, but here is a single powered NDM pulling a dummy and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 coaches up, can't remember what it is now, it's 2%, 1.1 degree incline, something like that. So So I have to admit, I'm surprised, but I'm also disappointed. It's not like Hornby had no experience making trains. How could they get it so wrong the first time? Traction on the motor car and fading lights in the coaches are my two big issues, and they've obviously been addressed now, but that's great for anyone who buys one now. But by fixing all these issues, they've admitted they were wrong. And is there any offer to make those issues right for all the people who spent all that money on the old ones? And a final word on storage of it then. It's such a tight fit. I've parked it up here just for comparison, so the kind of the yard line starts down there, and it's fairly obvious from here that it runs the length of the yard. And to minute detail, I probably could get it parked, but it would always be a stress because I have to check that stuff wasn't brushing it when it went past on either end. So although to the millimetre it might just about fit and not brush against other trains, it would always be a bit of a effort to make sure it's parked in that exact millimetre precise location. But I'm not, hopefully, going to go on about it. I think it's, it is good that there is now a really high quality product on the market. I've ended up with something that I didn't expect to end up with when I started making this video, is a smooth running 14 car APT. When I had it in a consist with two motor cars, it felt clunky and heavy as it came past on a because my elbow's kind of resting on the baseboard here and I could feel it come past. And the two motor cars felt clunky and heavy and unreliable, whereas the one that's going round now just feels beautifully smooth and reliable, and that has surprised me. I wasn't planning to do this, and I never expected that the single motor car would push that train around.